Synth Network.
And a very good evening to you. It is 8 p.m. Look at that. We even managed to time this so we started on time. It's episode 30 something. It always confuses me because my little thing here finishes ep and then it doesn't tell me. So what are we, 38, 39, something like that. Anyway, welcome to this show where we're going to be talking about all things music technology with our two regular co-hosts, Ben Simpson and Cryss Synthient. Good evening, chaps. Good afternoon. How are you?
Good evening.
All doing well?
Yeah.
Good.
How are you?
Yep. Pretty good. Thanks. Pretty good. Had some last-minute issues to deal with, which we'll come to in just a moment. But everything well in your world, Cryss?
Yeah, I'm doing all right over here. Just been taking it nice and easy. Had a very relaxed New Year's. Stayed at home.
I was going to say, yeah.
Yeah. So I like that.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the modus operandi of everyone this new year was like quiet, stay at home, hopefully. That was the thing. How about you, Ben? Did you have a good New Year?
Same. I mean, I've been gigging pretty much every New Year since I was like 20 or something. So
I remember those. Yeah,
I was expecting great things for a New Year's Eve off, but it was quite quiet. I was in here rewiring stuff and Vicky was just in here with me, just bored to tears.
Yeah. No, I remember when I used to play in a band many, many years ago, New Year's Eve was always, I always kind of like hated playing it because I wanted to be the other side, having a laugh and a few beers. But then we always had in our contracts that we'd get paid extra after midnight and then for every half hour thereafter. And so then you go, I could actually do the money now this time of year. I could do that. So get them more drunk, get them more excited, and they'll want us to play on a bit more. And hopefully they haven't got a curfew. But those are the days. Anyway, you may have noticed, those that are watching, that we are down by one person. We were supposed to have Dominic Hawken on tonight, but unfortunately he's taken unwell. And so he sends his apologies, but he won't be able to make it to the show tonight. So if you've come along just specifically to see Dominic, then I'm terribly sorry he won't be here. But please do stay. We would like you to stay. Hopefully you enjoy the rest of the show. But it was very, very last minute, and we did reach out to a couple of people to see if they could kind of fill his immense boots. But it was all a bit short notice, and so we just thought, we'll just do a regular show. We've got lots of guests kind of lined up for the beginning of the year. We're certainly getting some names in. We won't say who just yet, but be some nice surprises. So yeah, plenty of that. But yeah, if you are watching, Dom, which you probably not, because your wife told me you took a pill that pretty much wipes you out. But maybe if you're watching on catch up, I hope you felt better soon. And I'm sure Dom will want to be on here pretty soon, and we'll get him on as soon as we can. But, we are resplendent with lots of virtual guests in the chat room. So let's say hello to people like Synth Addict, Jupiter Boy 74, Asio Head, Knobcraft, Titter, Mickey D Island, Native VS, Atto Z, Mac, Graham. Is that Graham? No, it's EMX Gold. Simon's in there. Simon, who's going to be tucked up in bed with his iPad, so he told me earlier.
Andy's there.
Yeah, Andy Brooks. We've got Aaron there as Point Surrender. We've got Ken Flux Pierce. Good evening, sir. And a whole bunch of Sasquatch is there. Haven't seen Wagyu yet. X101. Brian Oliver's there as well. I'm sure that, more and more people will join in. And if you're not in the chat room, why not get in there? Get interactive.
Yes.
It's where all the cool kids hang out. That's where it is.
Yes.
We've got a whole bunch of stuff to kind of talk through, some news, because it's kind of been a bit quiet on the news front. But what we do have is a couple kind of nice discussion topics, where we can just kind of sit back with our pipe and put our slippers on and discuss some music technology conundrums and stuff like that. And of course, because it is the new year, I don't personally go in for New Year's resolutions, but we're going to talk about what are your New Year's resolutions? Have you got any New Year's resolutions? And we're also going to talk about what our predictions might be, and also be interested to hear what your predictions might be for 2021 in the music technology world. So bear those in mind, and we'll come to those in a little while. Let's get rid of these little tags because who we all are now. So that makes us a little bit more presentable. Shall we get on with some of the first topics? So some of these, they might not necessarily be the most up-to-date news topics because we've had this kind of lean period and we didn't have a show over Christmas, and then we did have one after that. And so anyway, let's move on. This is the first thing that Cryss brought out to us, to our attention. This is the Letimix, or is it Letimix Gainmatch? And it's basically a plugin that matches gain on your outputs, and it has many cool features like controlling before input gain, reverse linked with after, mixing before and after signals, one-click auto delay compensation, variable RMS time and filtering, and so on and so forth. It's available for Windows and Mac OS, both 32 and 64-bit. You can try it free for 14 days, and it only costs $19, which is pretty cheap. Now, let's play you a little bit of... let me just bring this up here, because I can't do this all in one go. Let's bring this up. This is the demo video, and got kind of like a tutorial, 5 uses for the gain matching plugin. Let's have a quick listen to this and see.
I will insert the Gainmatch plugin. It automatically sets itself to before. Copy this plugin to after. You see, this is 7 decibels louder. Click here, and that's it. You can control this knob without opening this plugin. You can give more gain. You can also link them so that when you add more gain, the output is automatically decreased.
So I'm going to stop it there because it's using a piece of music that will probably get us copyright struck there. But anyway, we'll move on there. So, Cryss, I'm going to move over to you first because you were the one that brought this to our attention. So, as I always do, I'm going to be lazy and let you talk about this one to start with.
Yeah, by the way, did you like the 90s flashback there?
Yeah.
I was like, whoa!
Yeah.
That was great. And just as a side, it's kind of funny walking into like supermarkets or department stores and you hear 90s music playing now instead of like 70s or something.
Yeah.
Like, oh man,
I'm old.
yeah. So this is such a boring plugin, isn't it? But it's so useful. I mean, we just go nuts over like, oh, there's a new reverb out or a new chorus or a new synthesizer, and this has none of that excitement, but I just thought it was such a great idea. It's happens to be very inexpensive as well, so I picked it up. But one of the challenges in recording is that we want to see the changes that we're making. Do they actually sound better before and after we've made changes in EQ and compression and all that? But we want to make sure we do that with the levels being matched so that we're not influenced, because we've all heard those synth comparisons where they make one just a little bit louder than the other, and you just have that effect where it sounds better because it's louder and you're hearing more detail. And so with this, it's been quite helpful because you can change some really subtle things in your music with whatever it is. EQ compression is where I use this, being to use this plugin. But then to actually hear, does it sound better? Because sometimes you mess with things and you think it sounds, oh, this is sounding good, and then once you get them level matched and you go back and forth, you're like, no, that wasn't such a great change. So I would see this as being a very useful production tool. And then how it works basically, and there's that video shows a number of things you can use it for, but you can have one instance and a second instance, that are, kind of bookends of an effect chain. And then as you're, switching things in and out, it will just automatically sense that and keep adjusting those levels for you, so you're not having to fiddle with it.
Yeah.
And then that instantaneous kind of, because that's one of the problems that I have is like, okay, I've made a change with 2 different plugins. Now I've got to, turn stuff on and off, and you've wasted so many seconds doing that. Whereas this, it's instantaneous. Like, click, okay, that's how it sounds. Click, that's how it sounds. And you just keep going back and forth with a click. So, yeah, I think this is going to be an extraordinary useful tool. Not the most exciting thing, but very, very useful.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, it's like the tool you never really knew you needed, but once you've got it, it's like, this makes so much difference, because I'm terribly guilty of that. I'll put something together and think, right, I need to mess around with the EQ on this, and then I boost, I'll stick a compressor on and just give it a nudge up, and oh yeah, that sounds good, and then now I've got to go to all the other ones and start messing around with those, and then you get into this horrible mess of where did I start, where am I now, and this, just sticking this on there just to keep those levels all consistent. Just so I'm going to pick this one up for sure, because it looks like really useful. Is this something you might use, Ben?
Yeah, when I first looked at it, I've got to be honest, I didn't see the point of it, and it was like, what's this for? And then the more I got used to the idea, I thought, yeah, I get it now. So there is that tendency, like you were both saying, that like you stick a compressor on something, you use the markup gain, and you think, oh yeah, that is much better. But it is, like you're saying, it's just your ears are taking that raise in volume, and you can hear a bit more detail and clarity and that. But if the volume stays the same, you might not actually be improving the sound. So it's good. It's very useful. Bit boring, like you're saying, but yeah.
Well, it's kind of it's boring in the sense that it doesn't do anything really flash and whizzy, but it does. It does something that's really bloody useful, I think.
Yeah, it's a utility thing, isn't it?
And for $19, what's that, 15 quid? It's it makes sense, even if you only use it, a little bit.
I really like the way that you have one at the beginning and the end. I think that's a great idea. That
another thing that you can do with it too. I mean, Ken in the chat mentioned distortion, and so. When I'm using channel switching amps or distortion pedals or something, there's always an output level to it. Where I've noticed in some plugins, these saturation plugins, sometimes you don't get that. And so there's no way to make that comparison. So you put one after your saturation plugin, and then as you're changing the saturation level, it's compensating by bringing that level down as you're bringing the saturation and gain up, which just like you guys said, okay, is a difference that I'm making, is it really good or not?
Yeah, for sure. No, this is it's a useful little thing. So if this floats your boat, it's Letimix, Letimix.com, and it's called Gainmatch, and it's $19. Which is not a lot of money at all. Let's have a look at the next thing here, and this was really cool if you own one of these things. So let's just bring this up here. I've lost the tab. Where did it go? There we go. Right, so this is a lovely little piece of hardware. This is the SFC-60 version 3. It's a boutique, class-compliant USB MIDI controller dedicated to the fantastic TAL Uno LX Juno 60 emulation. So if you have this plugin, here is a dedicated hardware controller for it, and it does looks the dog's leathery bits, that. It is built in collaboration with Patrick from TAL, so special features have been implemented to improve the user experience. But there's always been a handful of hardware controllers for software synths, and there have been some at the the real top end, like I remember the Imposca controller that I think only like 2 were made, and then you've got things. There's the one that I was looking at the other day. I forget the name of it now, but There are about 8 different synths that it supports, and I was looking at it because it supports the TX81Z. I can't remember the name of the controller, but it's, you know, you've got like overlays, and then you just load up the thing, and they're nice little things. But this is actually it's not too bad. I mean, it's €350, 288 outside of the EU. So I guess, and you factor in the cost of the synth, and you're still getting, you know, a hands-on Juno experience for $400, which is not too bad. But this is a really, really nice thing. Ben, do you? I don't know if you use the plugin, but you know, would this be something that floated your boat?
Yeah, I love things like this. You know, I've just spent I've noticed Ken's in the chat room. I've spent like quite a bit of time over Christmas using the macro controls on my Hydrosynth. You know, to control like different software packages within Cubase, and that's been really good. And it's amazing how much difference it can make when you're just concentrating on the controls and not the screen. It's like it becomes more kind of organic, the way that you're creating the sounds. And what I noticed, what was great about the Hydrosynth, I know that I'm going off a little bit, but it only has like these 8 controls. Like, Ken's gonna jump in and correct me, like, but as far as I know at this moment in time, it only has these 8 macro controls. But I found out that if you use quick controls in Cubase, you've got 8 slots in that you can assign to any controls you want. Right. So if you imagine you were just dealing with the filter section on a synth, you could save that as a preset. So you pull up Juno 60 filter section, and it's there already mapped out to your Hydrosynth. So all the knobs control that. But then if you want to flip straight away to the CS80, because you're using these quick controls, your controller's still mapped. Yeah. So you never have to change your controller. I've just got these 8 quick controls, and it's the quick control section that changes.
It's been
like, I was just going to say about this kind of thing, although it's brilliant, you're going to need one for like everything that you love, aren't you? And you're going to end up with like boxes everywhere and wires everywhere. I think it looks amazing. It's really got that authentic feel about it, and I think it really transformed the user experience of that piece of software. But I think I might stick to my Hydrosynth and my macro controls for now.
Yeah. I mean, it's been the kind of the eternal quandary, hasn't it? That we've had this, you know, huge wealth of software synthesizers, and every now and again somebody comes along with a hardware control which we go, oh, that's really cool, it makes that. But like you say, then, you know, if we bought a hardware controller for every soft synth that we had, we'd be up to our eyes in, you know, in all these controllers, and we'd have run out of USB ports or something. So I guess you've got to kind of buy the ones that are important to you. But it is nice to kind of see. Cryss, is this something that would tickle your fancy?
Yeah, I think something like this I would be very interested in. This would probably be a little bit too limited for me, because if I can only use it for one very particular type of synthesizer, I'm sure we could assign these. But I would like to see, and it seems like before there was more controllers that would do this, but were a generic layout. And I would like to see something that was along this line. So if you can consider something that's using a fairly generic layout with LED lights, and that will let you know. So what I'm thinking about is a System 8. And so with the System 8, it's got a generic Roland layout to it. But you know what happens is it's got 2 envelope sections. And so if you dial up a Juno 106, one of those sections turn off natively, and so the lights go off. You know, oh, that's not engaged. Now you can go into the menu and turn it on if you want. But something like that, where you have a little more visual feedback as to what's going on, and something that can be used with multiple synthesizers. So if I wouldn't mind it being large, you know, or even connected to a big keyboard or something to use as a controller. So got plenty of space, a number, several oscillators, LFOs, that kind of stuff that are easy to change. It, hopefully would come with some sort of software that would do all the hard work of mapping stuff. I mean, we can all do that, but it's nice when they provide that for you as well. And then you're in your DAW and you're pulling up, I'm going to use Tal, okay, it shows me with lights what's available to me and maybe even where levels are on there, which would make it very useful. And then you switch to your other track and you've got whatever your Minimoog emulation, and the lights change to say, hey, this is now the configuration. Yeah. And to have that kind of quick visual feedback for it and have all the things so you're not really having to do too much on the screen would be a really great product. And to me, that's something that I'd be willing to pay money for. With some of these, like there's one similar to this for the Pro 1, and it's like by the time you buy the controller, I mean, for not that much more, you can buy the actual Behringer full analog Pro 1. So there's got to be some sort of value for cost that's going to make me want to get this and use it. Now Andy says, why not just get a JU06A? Well, one of the hard things about those, I've got I still have the JX03, and the travel on the sliders are so short. I used to have the Jupiter one as well. I just use the System 8, but it's kind of hard to control, where at least like with this one that we're looking at, the slider ranges, you can dial in much better, fine tune it, because the length of the slider is a lot longer. Yeah,
that's for sure. I'm trying to think of the name of that controller that we showed a few weeks ago, which had that screen in the middle. Yeah. And that's kind of thing that had just like a whole range of knobs, and they were all assigned. You call up the plug-in, and they were all assigned, but it was expensive. It was still quite kind of new and stuff. But I've got the Arturia, the Keylab here, and this is a Mark 1. I know that the Mark 2s do much the same, if not more. But when you use those in conjunction with any of the V Collection instruments, they automatically map themselves to the rotaries and the faders. It doesn't tell you. It would be nice if everything had a little LED scribble strip underneath, so that you knew instantly without having to look at it. The other thing I like about it is with Analog Lab, although Analog Lab 5 has kind of done away with it, but Analog Lab 4, you could have it on screen and it would have an image of your particular Keylab underneath it, and you could then see on screen exactly what everything related to. And I kind of like that, but it's still not perfect, and I don't think we'll ever get anything perfect, because there's so many different software synths from so many different manufacturers, and nobody's interested, certainly nobody on the large scale is interested in building these, because it's just not economical. So I guess you've got to think, well, do I spend a huge amount of time with this particular soft synth? Therefore, does it justify me having a dedicated hardware controller for it, or is it something that's just like a fleeting thing? So, and then of course you've got that compatibility thing that somewhere down the line that an operating system update or a plugin update or a plugin platform update will break something, and then you've now got a €350 paperweight, essentially. So
I think that's why it'd be nice to be able to have a more universal controller. So instead of spending $250 or $350 for something like this, if you spent $500 or $600, but it's going to basically control almost all of your soft synths, it seems like it would make a lot more sense.
Yeah.
And I think where that it probably succeed. Ken's just said about the iPad editor, and it's on about TouchOS. That's like really good, and you can use that with everything. But it's whether that's too computery for you. Some people really like the tangible thing.
I guess the iPad is like a nice halfway house that gives you a completely unique interface per instrument. But you've got to use your fingers and the touch thing, and of course iPads are not necessarily cheap for a lot of people. No. Wasn't there, I seem to remember ages ago, a company that came up with these little knobs, essentially, that would sit on your iPad screen, and you could turn them They kind of like,
That's a good idea.
I don't think it caught on because I don't know quite how they kind of remained in place, whether it was through suction or something. But it was an interesting thing because obviously it had some kind of, it was conductive to replicate the finger being on the screen, and and you just had, you place them on
like
the screen.
Like a stylus, I suppose.
Yeah, I suppose, but it's that kind of this whole touchscreen paradigm is interesting. It's not ideal, but it's certainly a way to control things a lot more cheaply, because you have one iPad, but you can have a myriad editors all just playing out on there.
Well, I think like sorry, I was just going to say one of the uses for this could be like somebody who's used a Juno 106 in the live rig for a long Juno 60 or what, whatever, and they don't want to take that out anymore for whatever reason. So you got your laptop, you got your controller, your hands-on controller.
Yeah,
it's more or less the same experience, isn't it?
Yeah. But I said, if you are, if you use a Juno 60 or use that plug-in live and you want to have that control and you're using it a lot, then it makes absolute sense. But if you're not, or you only use it periodically, there's nothing in this room that I would buy a dedicated, there's nothing, no piece of software that I would buy a dedicated controller for, because I don't use one piece of software that much to warrant it. So
I do like that integrated idea, though. I wish. I mean, I've never used the Arturia Keylab with the Arturia software. I'd like to experience that to see how integrated it is.
It's like I said, it's nice because the software knows what the controller is, and therefore it knows how many knobs and faders that it has. They're all pretty standard, and it's obviously you've got the rotaries, you've got the faders, and you've got a whole bunch of buttons as well that you can use. What I like about it as well is the integration on the opposite direction. That, for example, you can scroll through patches on the software synth by using the wheel on the controller, and the display also displays, so it knows what synth you're connected to, and it shows the patch name and everything. So it's really nice. It's not perfect, but it's good. And as Ken has just kind of reiterated what I said earlier, it would be great if it had scribble strips. We're using a lot of Ken's comments today. Thank you. This is what we like. We like good constructive comments. Not saying that anyone else is not doing so.
Sorry, Chris. Doesn't the System 8 function a little bit like that in Roland Cloud, or doesn't it work as a controller for all the Roland Cloud plugins?
Yeah, so certain plugins are going to map to it a lot better than others. So if you're on the JX3P or the Jupiter or something, you're set. Probably the D50 wouldn't work so well on there. It would be interesting to try another hybrid approach where you have a piece of hardware controller, but an iPad would sit into it and be the computer and the screen and the touch screen, but then it would have knobs that could be mapped, like physical hardware knobs or sliders or something, like a minimal amount, but stuff that's easy to be mapped. And I'm thinking a bit of the Essence FM, where they've got a color-coded system where on the screen it'll show like this is the red knob, this is a yellow knob, blue knob, green knob, and something like that. So when you're trying to fine-tune things, it's a little bit easier because you have that physical, kinetic touch to it that you can really just use your fine motor movement, which is a lot easier for me than trying to press on a trackpad or an iPad for that little bit, something like that. And then you could also have it would be like that controller that we were mentioning, that the plug-in screen would change on it as you switch it on your DAW, and so the configurations could be changed to be mapped pretty easy. But even if it was, fairly large, maybe if it's 2 or 3 feet wide and your iPad just sits into it right in front of your recording station, that would be kind of an interesting thing. And then you could always update the iPad, and you could also have the options of running things natively from it, especially as, Apple with their new silicon, computers, where I guess in the future they'll iPad apps and Mac OS apps will be able to run natively on both, or at least one for the other. I'm not exactly sure how it works, but you could take that out somewhere and run your soft synth off of that little controller live, or it could be kind of a center hub for your studio. I don't know.
Yeah. It's an interesting thing. I like seeing them. It's almost like it's like a pretend version of the synth, and I like that. I like that kind of thing. But it's one of these things that I think you really need to love that particular software synth to invest in one of these. But it's nice that they exist, and I think what I like about the 21st century is that you can get small companies building stuff like this, and that's not it's for some people they would think €350 for to control a plugin that costs less than £50 or £60. But then for other people, it's like, I've been waiting for this all my life. I can't afford a vintage Juno 60, and here's the hardware, and I don't like the fiddliness of the boutiques, and boom, there it is. So it's an option. And Cryss, you have reignited my giddiness about the Essence FM, which I cannot. I seriously, I mean, what you just said there about the whole touchscreen paradigm, the soft controls, the soft hardware controls that color coded, mapped to the things. I think I'm just going to fall in love with that.
Yeah.
It just seems so me, I can't wait.
And I'm just thrilled that these companies are doing innovative stuff. So Essence FM and their interface looks really great. It's been mentioned already, the Hydrosynth scribble strips are so useful. To be able to visually reconfigure things immediately, and I know exactly where that knob is set with the value, and also I can see okay, now I can just go grab knobs and change them because I know what they are. So like when I was talking about this controller where maybe there's lights that come on and off that tell you, but something like scribble strips is even better than that if it's implemented.
Definitely. Well, there you go. That's the SFC-60 V3 from Soundforce in the Netherlands. So it's sound-force.nl, and it retails for €349. Which is a big bone of contention at the moment here in the UK because, of course, as you all well know, a bunch of idiots voted us out of the European Union. And we are slowly, these people are realising that they now have to pay a lot more money and taxes that they didn't have to pay for before. Idiots. Yeah.
I noticed that picture of the bus that you put up on Facebook. That was a crack at that.
Mad Max, the
Mad Max version of the bus.
Oh, dear me. But no, I mean, I buy a lot of records and stuff, and if I can get a good deal in Europe, particularly through Amazon, the whole European thing, you just order it on your regular account and it comes through and there's no charges. There's no extra taxes to pay, no import duties to pay. Now that has all changed. Everything is going to have C22, whatever it's called, the sticker that goes on the front and the VAT. Oh no. Never mind. We shan't do politics. Before we move on to the next thing, I just want to say a few things. First of all, please like us. Please subscribe to us and please click that bell. I didn't say that at the beginning of the show, but please, we'd love you to do that. We want to get the subscriber numbers up. The more subscribers we have, the more we can sell ourselves to prospective guests and other people to say, look, we've got all these people that subscribe to us. So please hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. Get your friends and family to do so. And if you like what we do every week, then hit that bell. Then you'll get the notification of every broadcast that we're going to be doing. And sometimes, and hopefully we're going to be doing more of them, we'll be doing stuff in between the Sunday shows. And so, it might just be a little demo of something or a review of something, or, Ben wants to show us his new cabling system. So, we'll do stuff like that, throughout. So if you want to be notified of anything that we're going to do, then please hit that bell, as the kids say, and then give us a like, because likes do matter. Unfortunately, it is the currency of the 21st century, so please do us. Also, you can join us on our Facebook page, and that's probably where you found out about us, but if you haven't, please go to our Facebook page, just search for Pro Synth Network, and you'll find the page. Asked to join. You'll be asked 3 very simple questions just to prove that you're human, and then just answer those and you're in. We've got a few people sat in the queue, and they've either answered one question or no question. So if you're watching, just go back in, answer the other questions, and you'll be through the front door. And also, I want to mention the fact that we are accepting donations. This is the address. It's also in the link down below underneath the video. If you want to click on that, it takes you to PayPal, and you can leave a donation no matter how big or small. We are incredibly grateful. It's you guys that have kept us on air and able to do this in the way that we've become accustomed to. And last but by no means least, and I've flashed this up on the screen a couple of times because I did have a look at the card before we came on. PSM Bingo, which is just this thing you can do. You can have the web page open or print it off, and Native VS does these for us. And it's just a grid, and you can just, we come up with some common terms or phrases or words, and it just, gives you a little bit of fun, and you can talk about that in the chat room.
And to make it even more fun, you make it a drinking game, and so
indeed,
take a
yes,
drink, win.
Absolutely.
So one of our questions. One of our questions already, Mac asked, will Robbie mention the Hammond FM synth?
Well, do you know, I was...
What?
Well, I don't know. It looks like an FM synth, but I don't want to commit myself to it. It's just, I forget who posted it in the Facebook group, but there's a teaser video for a new Hammond instrument, and it sounds very FM-y.
Right.
Whoever's... They're not showing much of it, but whoever's playing around with it, it's stepping through a whole bunch of things, and it sounds very FM-y. And it would be delightfully ironic that Hammond come up with an FM synth some 40-odd years after Stanford University approached them first and said, we've got this new technology called frequency modulation synthesis, and it does organs really, really well. Are you interested? And they said no. And so now,
well,
now they come up with it.
As I recall, and somebody correct the history if I'm wrong, but I think I remember that in the early days of Hammond, after Leslie's had started coming out, they were very against Leslie and what they were doing. And then eventually, I think, as I recall, Hammond bought Leslie out at some point later. So kind of, again, the same kind of cycle going.
Yeah. And who owns Hammond now? Suzuki.
Really?
Yeah, so the Suzuki Music Corporation, which I guess is related to the motor vehicle, like Yamaha is all one massive kind of company. But
so when is
that Omnicard thing back out?
Yeah.
Whatever it was called.
Yeah.
Sorry.
When's
Chris.
Honda and Toyota going to get in the game then?
Exactly. But yeah, I mean, when we know more, we'll definitely talk about that. But at the moment, I don't really know that much about it, other than that small teaser video. So it's kind of difficult to speculate on something that's so small. But it does look interesting. I must say, it does look interesting. And coming up later, we've also got the PSM weekly poll discussion, which is about your New Year's resolutions. And we'll also be talking, and we'll kind of discuss amongst ourselves our predictions for 2021, what they might be. Right, let's see, what have we got here? Let's do another. We've just got a kind of couple of more news topics to go through. So the first one is this thing, and I use that word quite accurately. It's called Things by Audiothing. Things Texture, Granular Reverb. Do we need another granular reverb? Yes, of course. Why not? Let's have one. And here it is. And it's a measly €9 at the moment. It's normally 19. So either way, it's not really that bad. But it's a very nice texture granular reverb. Let's have a listen to see what that can do. That kind of gives you a rough idea of what it's capable of. It's not hugely well featured. It's I don't mean that derogatorily. I mean that it's very simple. You have a mix level, You can go between grains and reverb, and then you can mess around with the pitch, of course. You've got mid-side, spread, and diffusion as well. And it sounds, for €9, that sounds really nice and really simple. You can get something really very quickly with that. One of the things I found with a lot of these reverbs that do a lot of diffusion and what's the other word, the shimmer and all that kind of stuff, is that you can often get quite lost in it, and then you kind of lose the essence of what it is that you're feeding into it. And whilst they are kind of creative, they can also be a little bit kind of destructive, I found sometimes. And maybe that's just the way I'm using it. But this sounds, like a really nice musical thing that doesn't destroy things too much, gives it this nice quality. That's my thoughts. Cryss, what do you think on this one?
Yeah, I was quite pleased to see this come out, and it's not like I don't have anything that doesn't do this already.
Yeah.
But they're kind of an interesting company. If people haven't checked it out, there's Outer Space plugin, which is a replica of the Roland Space Echo. One of the classics. I mean, it's one of the two that you immediately think of when you think of Tape Echo, along with the Echoplex. It sounds so good. I mean, it is really good sounding.
Yeah.
So this is kind of a fun one. It's very simple. You can pitch shift the grains on there, up or down an octave. Add a little bit extra decay and diffusion there. I wish it did have some sort of decay control to it. I mean, it's nitpicking. It's a free plugin. It sounds good as it is, but it would be a nice addition to it if they were to do that. But on the balance knob, if you're heading to the right, you got a really long, lush reverb, or you can, head to the left and get the grains. And at that center point, you're having a little bit of a both. So if you're looking for something to kind of spark creativity, this is one of those things that would, what's an instrument going to sound like through it? It's the same way I kind of use Valhalla Supermassive, in that it can take something ordinary sounding and give it new life, and maybe kind of stoke your creative juices to make something new because of the way it sounds, the texture of it.
Yeah. Ben, your thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I had a mess with it before. It like Cryss is saying, it's nice to use because it's so simple, but it would be nice to have some sort of way of adjusting the decay of the thing. It's set at one thing all the time, but it's still good, and it is quite inspirational as well. I just initialized the patch on the Repro 1, and I just started making some sort of drone sound, and I had this effect that I made basically by accident. It was kind of it was like the opposite of a shimmer, where I was using it, going down, the grains were being transposed down an octave, and I was just pitching stuff with the filter in this drone. It sounded so eerie, and had loads of atmosphere to it. It was like the music. I'd rewrote the music to Alien accidentally. It was really good. It was a damn good effect, and I'm going to store that one and use her again. But yeah, it's basic, but it sounds nice. One thing when you're tuning the grains up, I find that no matter what sound you're putting into it, that higher pitched sound is always kind of the same. It doesn't really. It always seems to sound a bit like a mandolin in the background, but it's good, and for the money, it's good value as well.
Yeah,
I think you can get the same effects with Supermassive and stuff like that. So. I think I'll probably stick with that. I'm just using a demo, which annoyingly kept going silent every 45 seconds. But it's good.
Excellent.
Did you get to try it, Robbie?
Not really. No, I haven't had much time this week to do that. But certainly, I think it's one that I'm probably going to pick up, because it just seems like, rather than going through, what's the Valhalla one, Supermassive. Which I like, and I've been using on a few bits here and there. I need to spend more time with that to kind of learn exactly what each control does and how it affects it. Whereas this one just seems like really nice and simple. I like that. I'm lazy, just make it nice and simple. Keep it simple, stupid. And I'll definitely, for €9, you can't really go wrong with this, can you?
Yeah, they've got also one called Filter Jam, which is free, and that's kind of a fun one because it's it's kind of a tonal thing that you can screw around with and make some interesting sounds. And I had just gotten their SR88 drum machine, which is often you can find it for like $9, but I had just been procrastinating getting it. And again, it's just a bit of fun. It's not anything I needed. It was just, I want to mess around with this and see what it does. And then sometime around in the last few weeks, I can't remember, some blog or something had it where they had a special, you could get it for free. So I picked it up and I put it as the drums in the last track that I popped up on YouTube. So it's kind of a fun little thing that reminds you of vintage drum machines.
Yeah, it's a nice little thing that. Audiothing.net is where you can pick that from, and all those other things that Cryss mentioned. And say €9 for the Things texture, which is just lovely, nice little textural reverb plugin. Let's have a look at our last thing. I'm not sure if we talked about this already. It just completely slipped my mind. And I thought, well, everyone else has probably mentioned this, so I don't want to spend huge amounts of time. But one thing I did notice when I was setting everything up for the show was that the page, the main page for the Arturia Chorus June 6 is now gone because the free offer ended on, was it the 29th or the 30th of December? And it's now gone, and you cannot find it anywhere. I only found this in the resources section. And the tutorial video is still available on YouTube. But did we talk about this at the time? I cannot remember.
I don't think we have. No. I think that was, we skipped it, or we ran out of time before we got to it.
Yeah. But this is really nice. I mean, again, it's not free anymore, but it was, and I think most people that knew about it and wanted it got it. But it really is this. I guess they've just broken the code out of the June 6 V and just given us this standalone unit. There are a couple of alternatives, and I know we've spoken about one at least. But I think this is a really nice version of that particular effect. And so I've got it. I've played around with it a little bit. It has its uses, and sometimes it's good, and sometimes it's not so good. But a nice little thing for Arturia to give away just before the end of the new year. And I apologise now because it's that free time has run out. But there you go.
I got to rave about this one a little bit. So when I did the upgrade, because I had gone from the V Collection 6 to the 8 just recently, and I was playing the June 6 on there, and it's like, okay, and I hit the chorus, and I'm like, yeah, it's kind of it. I'm not sure. I was a little bit undecided about the chorus part of it at first. And so we had talked one of the last times, one of our last shows before Christmas was, I had done a little comparison between my real Juno and a bunch of software versions of it. And then eventually I sat down and compared the Tal chorus, which is, the same kind of emulation for free, to the June. And it kind of surprised me because initially when I first played it, I thought, well, maybe I like the Tal a little bit better. It's a little bit shinier, a little more high frequency, sparkly sounding. And the more that I've used this June 6 chorus, I've just really fallen in love with it. And it sounds great on synthesizers, of course, but it also sounds really good on guitars as well. And one of the nice features that they put on it was that manual mode. And so you've got to switch between 1 and 2, just like the original Junos. And then on the 6 and 60, you were able to press both of them at the same time and have a third sound, which I think we had talked about a little bit. And that sound, native VS can describe what it does, how it sums. It doesn't have the wide stereo effect when you do that. So with this plugin, it more accurately emulates that than, say, the Tal Chorus, which keeps that really nice stereo spread when you go to the both engaged modes. But with this one, because it's got a manual mode, you click over in the manual mode, that phase control affects how they're separated in the stereo field, and then you can just run the rate up and the depth up to the part that matches that both engaged sound, but also be able to blend how much stereo separation that you want with it, and also to get some of those magical in-between tones, because sometimes we want a little bit faster than the slow rate or a little slower than the fast rate, and you can dial that in with the manual control. So I think that this is going to be a chorus that I'm going to end up getting a lot of use out of, and I have already, to be honest.
Yeah. Ben, have you played around with this?
Well, I'm a bit annoyed, actually, because Cryss has just said what I was going to say word for word.
That's a lazy cop-out.
No, I wasn't going to go into anywhere near that amount of detail, obviously, but yeah, I do agree with what he says. I think it's a great sounding thing. It sounds really good on a DeepMind 12 as well.
All right, yeah, well, yeah. So it should.
Yeah.
It's done that thing where it emulates an original thing and then it adds that little something extra that makes it stand out and then makes it worth it, and you've got to give it credit for that. So no idea. I'm sure that this will be made available either as a standalone unit or as part of one of their FX collections. I don't know. At some point, I don't think they're going to sit on this and not release it again.
Yeah.
But I mean, should we hear some sounds from it?
Oh yeah.
This because they've got this this kind of tutorial video, and I've hopefully queued it up at the right place. You can maybe hear some of the stuff that it does.
We'll start with something smooth and lush. Okay, that was mode number 1. Now let's listen to the same sound on the mode number 2.
It's subtle, but that's what I like about it. It's
lovely.
not. It really is. It's
It
nice.
is the right sound, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it's the sound.
Got it, yeah.
Absolutely, no.
So something else that Ben was also going to say that I'll just say before he does.
Go on, you better audio.
We can understand Cryss. We don't understand the northern accent. You see,
He's got me script.
I like how they've implemented the two controls. It's great having the manual mode, but the thing that bugs me about the Juno 6 and 60 emulations is that on the actual synth, you can kind of hit both buttons with your finger or just hit one or the other. And so if you're auditioning sounds, it's easy to change the choruses on those originals. Obviously my 106 doesn't have that third mode, but you just, you press between them like, oh, which one sounds better? And with the Tal one, you can't do that easily because if you have one on and you click 2, then they're both on and you have to go and unclick 1.
right?
And that audition it's just like a minor annoyance. With this, that third mode is a separate button that's in black just beneath it. So I don't really care for that sound. So I just want to click between 1 and 2. And with this, I can do it. So I think one of my next things I want to do with it is to do sort of an Andy Summers kind of chorusy guitar tone with delay. And I mean, I know some of the chorus units that he used. In fact, one of the things that he used a lot was Electro Harmonics Electric Mistress Phalanger. for chorus tones, but I think this would also work really well for that. I'm going to try giving a try with those like kind of clean, you strike a chord and then just let the delays carry out from it. And I think this would work well for that.
Did the technology... Oh, sorry, I was just going to ask, did the technology get passed between like Roland and Boss products back in the day, do you think? Do you reckon that this chorus technology might have ended up in the JC120 or the...
the CE1 and the JC120 are very similar. I don't know the fine points of it, but from what I understand, the circuit is very close on those. Now, then when they went to the CE2, that design changed quite a bit, but the technology, as far as how it's done, you're still using bucket brigade devices for very short modulated delay times.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. That was let me just find this comment here. I do. Aaron and his dry comments are very. He's got a very British sense of humour. I can't. Where the bloody hell is it? I can't find this comment. Here we go. I watch Pro Synth Network or Synth Pro Network to stay informed about all the products that used to be free or on sale. That's what we're here for.
Yeah, current affairs.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah, that's black current affairs. Excuse me. So there you go. Arturia's Chorus June 6. If you didn't get it, it's no longer available. It's just no longer available for now. But I guess it will come back at some point, either as part of an update to one of their FX packages or as a singular device. I think they'd be missing a trick if they didn't put it out as a singular device. I think they'd be missing a trick if they did just put it out for free, because there are other free options out there that are, there or thereabouts. So yeah, we'll see. Right, I'm having a dilemma at the moment because before we came on air and during the first half of the show, I had a beer, and I haven't been drinking beer a lot at all recently.
Ooh.
And so it's gone right through me.
Right.
So I'm trying to find an opportune moment where I can just nip off camera and go and point Percy at the porcelain, as they say. But we'll see. If you hear a trickling sound, then yeah, that's probably me. So we've got like an hour of the show left, which is probably nice because we've got no more news topics. It has been fairly quiet. Stop drinking. You make that water sound is making me want to go. So we've got a stop it. I will mute you. We've got an hour to have a nice lengthy discussion about a couple of subjects. The first of which is our weekly poll discussion, which was all about New Year's resolutions from a synth technical point, music tech point of view. And then we've also then got this discussion about predictions for 2021. We've also got something that Cryss wanted to talk about, and I think might be quite an interesting thing, and that's all to do with channel strips and what's the place of a vintage model channel strip in DAW recording, and do we use them? Which ones do we like? Do we like the ones that look really, like really real skeuomorphic stuff, or do we prefer them nice and simple? So, we've got a few things to discuss through there, and we'd really like your input. So, if you're in the chat room, we really would like your comments, and we'll flash them up on screen as and when we feel that they're kind of pertinent and stuff. So, let's talk about the weekly poll discussion, because it's always interesting to see what people want to do over the coming 12 months. I don't go in for this new year, new resolution, new me bollocks. I think it's just, I know we live in a cyclical environment with us spinning around the sun. But it's nice to kind of have a point, a consistent point. You can say, right, I'm going to do these things next year or whatever. So, the weekly poll discussion.
Do you want me to read through those and then you, what do you say, nip off real quick?
Well, yes. Let me
start reading through them.
Let me just call the right screen up because I didn't. That's the other one. And for those of you that are tuning in late or are watching on catch up, we don't have a Dominic Hawken in the room tonight. We were expecting him to be our guest, and he has very unfortunately taken a little bit unwell. He's nothing too serious, but he wasn't able to make it. So if you have joined to see Dom, I'm afraid we are Domless, but we will get him back very, very soon. So let me choose the right tab to choose, which I think is that one there. Let's have a look. There it is. Right, so there is our weekly poll discussion, and it was all about what are your New Year's resolutions that are specific to making music, recording, synthesizers, technologies. And as Cryss pointed out there, let's have something more detailed rather than just just learn my DAW. What did I put in there as my first suggestion? How to use my DAW. Because I'm a fairly recent Logic convert, and I've managed to learn what I need to know to get me through. But I paid for an online course, and I'm hoping it's still valid. I paid for an online course to go through, and that was going to be my New Year's resolution. So it was a genuine thing. I want to really properly learn my DAW, but I will let Cryss talk through those. And I will put the focus on, I don't know if I can, actually no I can do this. I can turn my camera off and then you two can be on screen. So I'll see you in a bit. Off you go, Cryss.
Right. So again, the question is, what specific aspect of music making, recording, and or synthesizers or other instruments do you want to commit to improving in 2021? And when I put the question up there, I tried to ask for specific things because otherwise we're going to kind of say the same old thing. Like I want to practice more, or I want to use my DAW, but what specific things about that, can we get better? And we could use this as often New Year's resolutions, go. We're on it for about 3 weeks, and then we forget about it for the rest of the year. But maybe this is something that will, kind of keep us accountable to it. Hopefully, anyways. So let me just start at the bottom of the list here. So one of the entries here: continue bettering my piano skills, which is at the heart of every song, and that was put by Damon Summers. Which is I think that's a really great one. I wish I could play piano. I would say better. I do not play it very well.
I think everybody wants to be a bit better, though, don't they? There's always room for improvement. I suspect that you think that your guitar playing's a lot better than your piano playing. But yes, I reckon you still feel as though you could improve your guitar playing as well.
Yeah, and certainly in the last few years, because I've been so focused on synthesizer, that one of the shocking things is that it used to be I could just do anything on guitar, and I was playing so much, and that if I needed to learn something new, it came pretty quickly, or if it was sitting down to record a track, I had no problem just playing what I wanted to play. It would just come out. And now I feel like since I'm not gigging very much, and I'm spending so much time on synthesizers, that some of those finer aspects of playing, like I know in my head what I used to be able to play and what I want to play, but I'm not as practiced. So some of the groove and the rhythm of it is where I feel like, okay, I got to sit and play this a little bit before I spend some time recording it, to kind of get back into that routine. But if there's something that I, with that I can get back to pretty close to what I used to be in a matter of weeks. So it's not something that's way out there for me. Now, with piano skills, I never got any piano lessons to begin with. So I would say I play synth type stuff a lot better than I play piano type stuff. That would be wonderful to work on, but I feel like amongst everything else that we have to do and to learn, that I don't think that's something that I'm going to be able to get to this year. How is it for you, Ben? I mean, what part did piano play in your life?
Well, part of my job, my previous job, was looking after a recording studio which had a Kawai grand piano in it, and so whenever there was studio dead time, I was just playing on that all the time. I was just really it's still at the school, that grand piano, but it's it's just in some reception area now, covered in graffiti and stuff, but it's a really nice piano, and I don't know, I felt like I got to grips with it. I could really express myself on this piano, and I think what I played sounded right. And probably more so than it does when I'm on synths. But it's the feel and everything, and the resonance, and how it feels to play. If you get a piano sample up on a synth, the synth action doesn't do it any justice at all. You really need that thing. So, yeah, I think that I prefer playing piano, but it doesn't make for the best music, does it? If I just everything I did was just on piano.
Didn't harm Billy Joel, did it?
Richard Clayderman. Yeah, a bit boring at the gigs.
Elton John.
Yeah.
Trying to just can't get enough and stuff. That's.
But can you imagine Ben on an Electromantics gigs with the old upright and slightly out of tune playing barroom music while everybody else is going on?
Yeah, I can actually. And another thing as well is when I first started out, obviously I didn't have pianos and stuff like that, so just back in the day, and I feel as though playing wise I was better then. It's with the advent of technology, I think that if you want a blistering run going through something, you step timer in. You don't sit there for hours and hours and hours trying to get it exactly right the way that, and that's what you used to have to do when you was recording things to multi-track. If you want, I suppose you could try and slow something down to play it in faster, but we're not all Michael Whalen, are we? So.
Well, this is why I use computers, because I cannot play for toffee. I can't play a tune, away. I mean, there's probably 2 or 3 things that I can play that I've learned over the years, but I'm not a pianist at all, or a keyboard player at all, and that's one thing I'd like to really knuckle down and do this year if I can, especially now because I've got a really nice controller with the weighted action, and I'm kind of semi-motivated because my son is so good at doing it, and he's getting some lessons. I can't have him being better than me. That's just so good.
It's not,
yeah. Let's split off of this question here for a second. So, Robbie, you started on drums, or at least it was very early, and I was guitar. Ken is mentioning, and I've seen him say this before, that this year one of his goals is going to be acoustic drums. Working on playing. As far as non-keyboard instruments, what role will be working on other instruments for you guys, the 2 of you, and for everybody in the chat? Are there other instruments that you're going to be working on? I want to learn this one better, or I want to master it.
I don't have any specific outside of synthesizers. I want to play my drums more than I do, because I had to dismantle them to put a Fairlight up because we didn't have enough room. So I now need to get that out and get the drums up going again. But no, I don't have. I mean, I think I mentioned this on the show last week. I entered a competition to win a bass guitar, a Hofner violin bass, which I've desperately wanted for years and years and years, and I didn't win it. Had I won it, the answer to this question would have been completely different, because I would have knuckled down and learnt to play bass to a certain degree of technical ability. But no, I don't have anything specific. Ben, do you?
I got a bass a couple of Christmases ago with that exact plan in mind. I was gonna, because I actually started off on bass and I wasn't very good at it, so I started playing bass lines on keyboards and went from there. But I think I need to stop configuring.
Yeah.
Stop planning to do things and actually do them. I think I spend so much time refining everything to the point where it's operationally perfect, which I'm never going to get there. I'm getting close, and then something else needs looking at, and I just need to say, right, that's it now. I can tweak things as I go along. Let's just get loads of music out. And so I'd like this to be a year of getting a lot of music out, to add some more examples of soundtrack work. I've got to get the live band out. The live band's doing 2 albums as well, and I want to release my own stuff and all. So, yeah, stop configuring if I come on this show in a couple of weeks and I say, oh, I was in MIDI Quest today and doing this and doing that, just say like, stop it, stop assigning macros and get some work done.
So, as the multi-instrumentalist amongst all of us here, Cryss, what about you? Have you got anything new you want to learn?
I've mainly been working on just playing synth better, keys, better. I'm trying to set some realistic goals for myself and go, okay, I'm not going to be a classical pianist, but I want to get better. So I've been working on playing leads, and that's something that, when I play guitar, I would often function as a lead guitarist. So I kind of have in my head what I want to play, and now it's more the mechanics of making it happen. And so I feel like I'm getting better at that. And if I can get, a lot more comfortable, even more comfortable, then maybe in the future I would think about, well, okay, I'm going to get like a digital piano or something and start working on it in earnest. I think the instrument that I keep thinking in the back of my head that I would use more is I have a 1955 Fender lap steel, and I have used it on a number of tracks, but I still am not at that point where I'm keeping up on it as much. I bring it out a few days before I have to record something and just start playing it so that I will kind of get back in the groove of it. And I tried the kind of Hawaiian and country C6 tuning on it, and I just like not really working for me. But I have listened to a lot of blues, so when I tuned it to open D or open G, that's something that's like a more familiar way to attack it. So I've been trying to do that. Now, Torsten has a really interesting instrument that he's been working on as well, and I think he mentioned it here in the chat. I'm going to probably say it wrong, but it's Tashigodo. And so I've seen some pictures of this, and it's about the size of my lap steel, it looks like, and he could probably explain it better, but it's a Japanese instrument that it's an electrified string instrument, so it even has a little pickup, but I think it was, Torsten, what was it, 4 strings, I believe, and that it sounds really cool, like to put into music. So that's something that I know he's been working on. Let's see, Steve Pierce says kazoo. But I don't think he was going to play it with his mouse. So I'm not sure how that's going to work.
Do you know what people are trying to do? the people in the chat are suggesting things that they're going to learn, but it'll also trigger us to give them bingo points.
Well, that's one of the things I've committed to do now. So you all know I've pre-ordered an Essence FM. So there you go, mark that one off your cards. And
I want to master me D-beam as well.
Yeah. Yana said he wanted to do that. So one of the things when I was finally able to afford to buy decent synthesizer hardware, which was like the early mid-90s, one of the first things I bought was a Roland sound canvas. Okay, so a lot of people might say, "But I thought you said synthesizers." But it is. It's a box of sounds, a lot of sounds. It was one of those horrible, dreaded GMGS boxes. But what I loved about it was 32-part multi-timbral, 128 note polyphonic, I think. I literally could do everything with that box that I wanted to do. And when I first bought it, I plugged it into my PC, and I had a Evolution MK49 controller. That was it, and a Sound Blaster card, which I used for little samples here and there, and that was it. And I made more music with that than I've done with any of this stuff. Yeah. I was so insanely productive. Like every day, I would come up with something new. I would annoy the crap out of people at work because I'd be going in with a cassette. And we used to have. Do you remember? This is one for the UK people. So in a lot of retail stores for the in-store music, we have this thing called the Rediffusion deck, and it was a company called Rediffusion. You used to rent the tapes, and they would license the music from the various places, and then you'd play that in store. So I would put my music on this thing and blast it across the shop. And then people would be listening to it. I'd be looking for reactions, and then I'd go, "That's me, that is." And I used to really annoy people. But I had this one box that I could do everything with. And ever since then, every synth that I've bought has been pretty much a one-trick pony. You know, it's been you know, like the CS1X or the Prophecy or you know, the Emax or the Fairlight. You know, I mean, obviously sampling, you can be anything you want, but to have that degree of power and breadth of scope of, you know, notes and multi-timbrality was where I really kind of found my voice, if that makes sense. The Essence FM is 300 note polyphonic, 16-part multi-timbral, and I have got this thing in my head that I'm just going to sit there and make complete tracks with this thing, and that excites me because it reminds me of those very early days where I was making that, and so that I just kind of want to like shut everything else off and just hook up that to a keyboard and see what I can come up with just with that box alone, and that really excites me. So that's definitely going to be on my list of things to do because I know that I'll complete that one. So there you go.
That's awesome.
I used to, Synth Addicts just mentioned this one. I used to be a little bit obsessed with the sound canvases because it was one of my first proper instruments. I used to have a PMA5. You remember those? They were like a little Filofax, and you had a screen, a touch screen, but it wasn't the capacitive one. It was one where you had a stylus to do stuff. And I bought it because Vince Clarke had one. And after about an hour with it, I thought, it still doesn't make me sound like Vince Clarke. And it kind of sat on the shelf until I sold it for a considerable sum of money, I might add. I also had the SCP-55, which was a PCMCIA card with an entire sound canvas. You know, basically the SC-55 on a PCMCIA card. Yeah. That was dead cool, that was. Yeah. The thing is, a lot of people hate on GM, but Roland and Yamaha, when they extended it, you know, so you had GS and that was Roland and XG was Yamaha. There was some damn good sounds in there, but, you know, they weren't flexible.
The idea of GM is actually all right. I remember I used to, when I used to make backing tracks, I shouldn't really be saying this. I used to make backing tracks for people. Yeah. And I had a sample tank with my own GM that I made for that. Yeah. So, like, you get a GM, like, MIDI file or whatever, bung it through this sample tank, and it'd sound great. Yeah. You know, it only needs tweaks.
Yeah.
You know, the majority of it's there. Yeah. And then, like, sell it to somebody for, like, 25 quid.
That's it, yeah. Andrew Brooks said he had the SC-88. That's what I've got, the SC-88 VL, which is the kind of the one without all the buttons on the front. But I used to buy Twiddly Bits. Do you remember Twiddly Bits? MIDI files, MIDI performance files on floppy disks. It was Dave Spears basically behind those. Yeah, and
I do.
There was like loads of different volumes. So there was like, you know, a volume for guitar. So you had lots of people that had played MIDI guitars and they'd recorded the MIDI data. Yeah. And then you could apply it to anything, and it would just sound like you were strumming a guitar. It's fantastic. And Native ES asked in there, did the Sound Blaster card also have an FM synth? It did. Not a very good one, but it did. Absolutely.
Like the Fairlight then?
Indeed. I was, do you know what I've been doing the last, I'm going to skip past that, over this weekend. So yesterday, when was New Year's? New Year's Day was Friday. So New Year's Eve, we had a big Chinese takeaway, and we had a bottle of wine and some Prosecco and stuff. And my wife woke up on Friday morning really worse for wear, spent most of the day in bed. So the kids looked after themselves. And I sat in here, and I've just been prompted by this, by that comment about FM chips. I went through and researched every single FM chip that Yamaha used in all of their FM synthesizers and identified which ones were which, and then, you know, specs and made spreadsheets and stuff, and that's how sad I am. Wow.
Spreadsheets on FM synths.
Yep. Specifications, so I can check, because obviously there was a lot of kind of crossbreeding and stuff, and slightly, you know, and those FM chips, well, I tell you, they're pretty interesting stuff.
Yeah, it's early on in the year, but I think you might have clinched the nerd title for 2021 there.
Yeah.
Wait, are they called chips over there, or crisps?
Next up, next week, it's DAC chips. That's my next thing. So,
So next question up on the list. We started at the bottom. So Steve Pierce, ergonomics. Where to put things so they can be used with the least friction?
That's a good one.
That's a very interesting one.
I think that's like an ongoing. I say that's really an ongoing thing, I find, because I got this room set up in a particular way that I thought was ergonomically good for me. Mixer, monitors, controller, stuff. This wasn't here. Everything was midied up and everything was within reach. And then I buy a few more bits of gear and that all goes out the window, and I want to rearrange my room again because now I want this as my main controller, but I don't want it in the middle of the room. I want it over here. And yeah, it really is. And I think, Ben has been doing a lot of this, obviously with his wonderful new installation that he has behind him.
Yeah.
Getting that ergonomics thing and everything in the right place, within reach. I mean, it's like a never-ending thing, isn't it?
It is. I'm happy with mine at the minute. Probably change again in a month or so. But yeah, I've spent a lot of time, like the past few days, like making sure that everything's positioned where I can get to stuff that I use. Now, you might notice that the E6400 Ultra is right at the bottom and not even powered on over there.
Just below your right shoulder, yeah.
Yeah. And that's because it's not very well.
Oh.
It keeps dropping on one side the volume and going dead loud in the other, and it does it through headphones. It does it on the the individual outputs. Whatever you do with it, it still does it. So I have got another one in the loft, so I'm going to try and cannibalise the other one and get a working one.
Funny, I'm doing the same with the Emacs.
Oh, are you?
Two of that. Yeah, I need to sort that out.
It's Emu. It's Emu's fault. Yeah. So yeah, that's the only thing that isn't like remote controllable from the computer. That isn't at a good, like, convenient location, but it doesn't work anyway at the minute, so I'm not using it. So I've gone back to the Akai. That's why the controller is.
Yeah.
Oh God, I can't do anything. Look at this. There.
Yeah, it's all reverse, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's funny because this was something Ben reminded me of. I'm just going to put this in because it tickles me. Ben reminded me of this a little while ago. So my very first encounter with Ben was before the days of ProSynth Network, and Ben put a thing up in an Akai S6000 Facebook group about the operating system. And the thing is, if you to update the operating system on an S6000, you need the floppy disk. There's no other way of doing it. And he hadn't got one. He didn't, so I said, "I'll make you one, and you can send me, PayPal me, whatever it is." And it turns out, I've got boxes and boxes of floppy disks, and I just stuck it in the post. It cost me £1. I said, "Don't worry about it." Months later, he says, "Do you remember when you did that Akai disc for me?" I'm like, "What?"
You didn't know it was me?
I honestly didn't know it was Ben. Honestly, and for months, and I had no idea. And I actually dug through the messages yesterday, Ben, and I proved, I showed it to myself. There it was, me being all nice and
it was a lovely gesture, that, and it helped me out.
Look where it got me.
Sticky situation. yeah.
Look where it got me. Anyway,
so speaking of ergonomics, so I did a little work on that myself this week, and I'm kind of thinking about, as we do, like where stuff is, and I'm generally happy with this setup. It's working pretty well for me, but I upgraded my studio monitors, and I'm quite pleased about that. But I was thinking about where my computer is. So I have just one computer, and it's a 16-inch MacBook, and so that's my whole life is this computer, and so it goes with me wherever I go, and I don't have a separate recording computer in the studio for that, so I have to be able to kind of take it and go and plug in and do all that kind of stuff. But one of the problems I've been having lately is that screen height and distance, and trying to work that out. And one of the problems that I've been having is, I kind of figure out where to get it up higher, but then I end up doing this, which is really bad for your neck. And I have I have a lot of neck problems and headaches already. So I try to avoid that when I can, and try to get to where I can be a little more seated straight up. And then if I'm just mixing, I use this chair, but if not, I have my wife's drum throne that I use for like playing guitar or synth or whatever, because it sets me in a better position. But the monitor thing is so important. And I really wish I did have like a big giant video monitor for this, and I would just connect into my MacBook, but I don't. So I'm doing everything on the 16-inch monitor, and I went on to Amazon. And I started looking like, what are my options as far as making this better for me? Like, because I want it to be a little bit closer, but a little bit higher, but it's not convenient with my setup here because I've got this big wide desk. It's kind of L-shaped, and then it's got two kind of shelf type bits that sit on top of it. Like, you know, we're talking big bucks IKEA here.
Hey, don't knock it. It's good stuff.
Yeah, I love it. So I went looking, and they found all these, you know, because I had never looked into this before. So to me, this is all brand new discovery. But of course, home offices are a big thing right now. So I got this mount, this video mount that has two movable arms on it. And so on one arm, I've got my laptop now sat here, which is, you know, I don't know, you probably can't see that, but it's right next to where my camera is. And then on the other one, I have like an iPhone or iPad mount that I figure if that ever becomes part of it, it'll be there. But I just mounted the camera to it, so it can now just slide back behind my computer out of the way because it sits in front of one of my monitors. So it can go out of the way during the week, and on the weekend comes, and then I pull it out for our show and can just have it sitting there. But the main part of this is that I now have a place where my laptop screen is in the perfect position. I've got some Bluetooth trackpad and keyboard so that it can keep my arms down if I'm doing that. I've got my little MIDI controller here, which I can pull out, set my Behringer Cat underneath there. I've got my recording interface in close reach. Plus I have a little mini pedal board, which I have like a compressor and a tuner on for recording guitar or bass. And so I feel like this area is just kind of gotten fine-tuned now, and I'm really happy about it. I've taken, you know, one of our favorites is zip ties, which I've always used on pedal boards for cable routing. But I've got all my cables, so I just set the laptop down, and there's 4 things that just go plug in, and I'm done. It's turn the switch, and it's all ready to go. Now, you've done some stuff with that female assistant, whose name we shall not say.
That's right, she's
we won't
turned
set
off.
up things. Okay.
All right.
Yeah.
I can't say her either.
Yeah. No, I've turned. Mine's on my desk. I've fallen into the world of voice controlled and you know that kind of stuff. We've had one in the kitchen for ages, but I thought, do you know what? I actually like one. I think the kids would, you know, I know my son wanted one, so he bought himself one. So we've now got a network of Amazon Echoes and Echo Dots around the place, and they are really very useful. We use Amazon a lot, but I was inspired mostly by what Ben did with his, and he has I don't know how many smart plugs you've got in there, but
two.
Okay, so you know he voice controls the powering up and the powering off of a lot of his equipment doing that, and I thought, do you know what, that would be really useful for me. And I got one smart plug free with one of the Echoes that I bought, and the mixer that I use doesn't have a power switch. It's just, you know, it's either on or off, plugged in or not. And I have to crawl under my desk, and I don't like leaving it on overnight. So I put a smart plug on there. So now I just say, Alexa, mixer on, or Alexa, mixer off. And boom, it comes on or off. It's brilliant. And I'm thinking, now I think I can do other bits of the studio. But what I've been kind of reluctant to do is like overload them, because, you know, these smart plugs are generally rated for 13 amps. So again, another thing that I was doing certainly on Friday and Saturday was checking the boilerplates on the back of every one of my synths to get the wattage, and then, you know, calculate the amperage, and figure out if I was going to be overloading one of these things. Then I spoke to a friend who's a real sort of electrical whiz, and I said, you know, if I've got these things and they're these many amps and I've got this, you know, is it safe? Because I don't want to blow the house up, or, you know, wake up, you know, one morning to a shell. But I think that's something that I might do this year is smart control certain things, because, you know, I've got like 4 or 5 main kind of power areas. So I've got one over just there. There's one in that corner, and then there's 2 I've got like 2 multi-plugs on that Jasper stand there that power 6 things each. And the one thing I don't want to do is like go, Alexa, studio on, and then everything goes on and there's this massive surge. And the electrics in this house aren't wonderful, but they're good at the moment. But I don't want to have all of these things turn on. But I would like to be able to sit here and say, maybe call that the Yamaha ring. And so Alexa Yamaha, and then that stuff comes on, and then Alexa whatever I call that thing, and that comes on, and I can just turn them on and off as and when I need. That sounds really lazy, but it's super convenient.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
It is. I've overloaded one of my plug sockets doing exactly that and broke it. So I've only got one plug that works at the minute, but I am going to get more because I just group them into one thing called Studio. And so,
right.
But you could have it in smaller groups. You could have like digital rack, Yamaha rack.
I think that's the way to go. And also, I was looking at power conditioners as well. Just get a few these power conditioners and have one one for that rack, one for that rack over there, one for the other bits in that corner, and then I think you can get them sort of 8 to 10 devices up to 10 amps per unit.
I've got 4 of those in here.
So I think that might do, because I was watching a video. I forget the name. I can see it in my head, but I can't remember what it is. But some guy has just done this, big, lovely studio rebuild, and they were going through literally every rack, and he's got a power conditioner at the top of every single one of these rack units, and I think that's sensible. That's to break things down like that and have something that you make sure that the power is conditioned and you're not going to overload stuff.
It's easy setting up as well because your power just comes down to each unit in the rack. Yeah, and then if you use looms as well, life's easy.
As I say, my eternal thing is that I live in a rented house, and if I do anything that's too permanent, it just becomes a pain in the arse when things change. And hopefully the situation won't change for a number of years, but it's just I'm always reluctant to do permanent stuff, and I'm desperate for a shed like Mickey had that we showed last week, where I can just have my own place and do it exactly how I want it, and we'll see. But anyway, I'm conscious of the time. Shall we just kind of do a run through of what's left on there? I know we've there was a lot of answers. It was some really good stuff on there. So let me just bring that screen up. Because I really do want to talk about predictions for 2021, if we can, before we have to end the show. So we talked about ergonomics. So Jonathan Redmond says downsize, quality not quantity. I think that's a lesson maybe we could all learn from. Optimize room treatment, says David Phillips, and learn a new door. So he tagged that one on the end there, cheeky sod. More practice, less mindless jam, from Ken. I don't think you can ever have a mindless jam, can you really? Chris said increasing the speed or ease of using my DAW's sampler. Yeah, I think we've spoken about that before. Robert, Native VS, says finishing existing DIY projects before starting new ones, which I think is a good lesson to have. Always finish something before you start something new, because then you end up with... I've got folders full of like 4, 8 and 16 bar pieces of music. It's actually kind of nice sometimes, because I go back to them and think, did I write that? Oh, that's not bad, that. Or you think, oh, that could actually fit in with this, and then eventually. So it's not.
Have you ever listened to 2 different pieces and they sounded remarkably similar?
Yeah,
You've done them at different times.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's like, wow.
You come up with something, you think, oh, that's good. Where did that come from? That was a blinding piece of inspiration. And then you realise 6 months earlier you did exactly the same.
Yeah, it came from me in 1998.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Torsten says improving CPU load for his DAW. So yeah, I mean that's a good thing to practice. Is especially if you have restrictive amounts of CPU and you're not minted and you can't go out and buy the latest, fastest, biggest, powerful machine, is optimizing your CPU load. Chris Meyer says learn how to compose and play better and not just rely on patching skills. I guess is that one for the Eurorack people?
Yeah, I reckon.
Learn how to compose and play. Because I've always kind of, it's one of those kind of unspoken things about Eurorack and people that do a lot of Eurorack, is that there doesn't seem to be a huge amount of what I would say is playing performance skills and composition skills. A lot of it's relying on kind of happy accidents or experimentation rather than that. So, and I don't mean that in again, I don't mean that in any derogatory way. It just seems to be that's the way it is. And then I thought I said Gary Newman for a minute. I thought, when did he join the group? Gary Linden. Learn to use the stuff I have before I buy more stuff that I need.
Yeah.
I should probably take that off there.
And then finally, learning to procrastinate less and finish tracks faster. And I guess that, but isn't it just the way? I mean, hands up, and you can put your hands up in the chat room virtually. Who amongst us does this for a living?
Not at the minute.
Tumbleweed, innit? Yeah. Some of us used to. Some of us do it as a part-time thing. I a small segment of my income comes from what I do in this little room here. But most of us are. We've got day jobs, we've got families, we've got lives, and stuff gets in the way. And then maybe you get a new piece of gear and you spend a few weeks just messing around with that, and then not focusing. So it's focus, isn't it? Learning to focus more than anything else. But anyway, and that was from Michael Moncur.
I think like with anything else, really, I think like your musical ambitions have to be coordinated and a strategy to it, don't they? Unless
and in this day, in these times, you've got to do other things, haven't you? Otherwise, if you rely on gigging, you're screwed.
Oh yeah, well.
Yeah. Well, you miss out on some of the skills that you need to practice if you don't finish songs, and so I feel like that was one of mine for 2020 is like to finish more tracks, because I do enjoy various aspects in songwriting. I always feel like I want to keep moving on to the next project, but that's been one of the disciplines I've worked on, particularly the last half of 2020. And so you got stuff waiting in the queue that you want to work on, but it's like, no, I'm going to finish this because I'm going to do all the parts for it. I'm going to mix it. I'm going to do some mastering of the song and kind of go through that whole process so you can practice all those different parts of it. And then there's, something that comes out of it is that when you finishing these tracks, you have a body of work which you can go back and look at, like, oh, that was good, or that was maybe could have been better. And, every once in a while I enjoy going back and listening to my own stuff to see where was I at 2 years ago or 10 years or 20 years ago as far as songwriting, as far as production, and it kind of helps me to track that process of it.
Yeah. Something, you hate it when that happens. Something just came into my head and then just literally went out the other side. I was going to say something that was probably not very profound. Knobcraft, which always makes me titter, says in the chat room, how to ask a question here. Just ask. Yeah, it's free. Just stick the question in there. And if we can answer it, we'll answer it. So that's kind of our resolutions. That's what a lot of us want to do. And it would be interesting, maybe if we can do a screen grab of that and save that list. Or it actually might even be saved on Facebook, but whatever. We save that, and then in a year's time, the show before, the last show of the year, we go back and we say, hey, did we manage to keep any of these resolutions? Did we manage to do this? Did you learn? I've just remembered what I was going to say. I'm going to say it because one of the things that really frustrates me personally is when I watch a demo video of a piece of equipment, particularly one that I own, and I hear people who have got obvious piano playing or keyboard playing skills, and it sounds brilliant. Any good demo, especially a manufacturer's demo, is done by someone who has excellent chops, and it just sounds brilliant. And then I turn around to that particular piece of gear and I turn it on, and I put my meaty hands all over it, and it sounds nothing like it because I don't have those playing skills. I have the equipment. I know that it can sound that good. I just am not that good, and that's something I really want to put a fix to, is to learn the craft. you know, and then learn to play it properly.
You know, one of the nice advantages with synthesizers and MIDI and all of this, like, if you're not good at guitar, you're not good, and it's gonna sound terrible.
Yeah.
Because you're not going to play, and you're going to miss notes or whatever. At least with synthesizers, so I don't compose in piano roll at all, and I try to spend time since keys are not my primary instrument. I sit and try to work it out to where I can play it pretty well, or like I've been doing a lot more solos on my pieces. But there are times where I'm just in the process of this. You know, I'm along on the journey. I wasn't a pro synth player. I was a pro guitar player. So I know that I'm not where I want to be, but I'm on the way there and I'm getting better. And at least with this field, we can go in and, like, when I hammer out something on the keys, I look at I listen to it back and I go, it's if it's not close enough, it's not close enough. I just go and re-record it until I get it right. Yeah. But there's always going to be a little bit of slop to my playing because I don't have as much experience as some of the other people here. So it is nice that I can go in and go, I keep bumping that B flat or something on this chord change. Well, the rest of the performance is good. And I nailed it, so I'm just going to clean up that one note that I bumped. Yeah. And it doesn't prevent me from the main goal of making music. So I think we do have that kind of advantage. Like if you want to sit and, you guys talked about bass guitar. If you mess the notes up and stuff, I mean, you can fiddle with stuff in Logic to get it right, mess your timing and all that and pitch, but it's gonna hurt the sound of the recording quite a bit. Yeah. Whereas at least with this, we can kind of stretch beyond our abilities a bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, there's resolutions, and as Wagyu points out in the chat room, his resolution is 6240 by 2160.
Pretty high, that. Yeah.
Indeed. And also, I just want to clear up. I hope I didn't offend. So when Knobcraft was asking about how to ask a question, I said, "Oh, it makes me titter." It's just pathetic, childish, schoolboy English humour. Anything with the word knob in it, okay? It's just Ben's smiling. Cryss is like, what are they talking about?
Yeah.
But it's a knob gag, and any opportunity to have a smutty little titter, Mrs. knob gag, carry on, matron. Yeah. It's just that it's me, it's not you. I hope I didn't cause any offence. That's all it was. Right. So we've done New Year's resolutions. So let's do this next thing, because this could be interesting again. If we play this back, and I will review this in a year's time, if we're still going in a year's time, which I hope we are. Predictions for 2021 in music technology. So what are people's predictions? So obviously, if you in the chat room have any predictions, please do let us know. But first of all, let's go to Ben first. Ben, any predictions for 2021 in music technology?
I would like to see the CS80 from Behringer.
Okay.
I would like to see somebody make a decent controller keyboard with poly aftertouch and a ribbon, like the Hydra Synth. Mm-hmm. Now, I don't know whether ASM could do that. They could just take the sound engine out of it. And
that's not a bad idea at all.
Yeah, they could just have the keyboard, the strip, and maybe the scribble strips macro control bit. Yeah. And you've got a really good controller there.
Is Ken still in? I haven't seen Ken. I know he was playing around on his drums and listening to us in the background. That's rude. But Ken, not that Ken would tell us, because he's probably up to his eyeballs in NDAs. But yeah, that's a great idea. Yeah. Because it's already there. Take the engine out, leave the keyboard, the strip, and then a whole bunch of rotaries with scribble strips underneath. Boom.
Wow, that'd be a great controller, that.
With poly aftertouch.
At least 5 octave as well.
Yeah, that would be something to have, because that would be one of the disadvantages of you actually using the Hydra Synth keyboard version is the 4 octaves. But a 5-octave controller, and then if it was, somebody could be clever and start printing, out some, what's the word I'm looking for? So if you got a Hydra-Synth desktop, you have some mount that sits behind it. You could have a couple of those on there, so you have 16 voices, full Hydra-Synth keyboard, controls everything in your studio, plus the Hydra-Synth itself.
Yeah, wow, that's we're on it. ASM guys.
Indeed, there we go. Yeah. Sasquatch says, I predict Behringer will release a couple of synths. Well, they seem,
but not the RD9.
But not the RD9, quite.
Yeah, that's a thorn in Marshall's side.
Yeah, indeed, and the UBXA, that would be nice to see. But we forgot to mention, we'll talk about it when we know more about it, but they teased a COBOL clone, an RSF COBOL clone, in their New Year's post on Facebook, which I don't have to hand. But yeah, Behringer will release some home appliances. Probably will. Do you know, actually, I don't know whether I was being profound or not, but whilst I was sat contemplating life earlier today, as one does after dinner, I thought two things about Behringer. The thing that's really great about them and the thing that's really awful about them. The thing that's really great about Behringer is that they have a man in charge of them who has no concerns about anything and just goes with his gut and does stuff and is what's the word? It's on the tip of my tongue, but he just does stuff when he feels like it, and it's great. The worst thing about Behringer is that they have a man in charge who just does stuff when he feels like it, and it's all great. And that to me just seems to sum up the whole thing with Behringer at the moment. They do some really good stuff. But boy, I wish they didn't do some of the bad stuff. Anyway, we won't go into that any further. So we're predicting some new Behringer stuff. Ben's hoping, I don't know, are you predicting that? Do you think that's going to be a 2021?
I very much doubt it actually happens. I do know that ASM...
They've got to be doing something new, haven't they?
They've got a couple of products on the way, but I don't know what they are. But I do know that.
Because, I mean, let's be fair, it was the synth of 2019, 2020, wasn't it? It was, the one that everybody, I've not heard a bad word said about it, to be honest.
No, it's great. It is great.
But it's been a few years now since we first kind of saw it, and so we need, there's got to be something on the way, hasn't there? Surely. And it's
been just over a year.
Yeah,
isn't that like late 2019 or so?
Yeah, it was kind of back end of 2019.
Yeah, it was.
So,
it was, yeah.
So let's conservatively say 18 months, and they've been really quiet. There's been some companies, and I guess here we are again living in the world of Behringer, where they just drop things out randomly, and you've got ASM that just here's our brilliant synthesizer, and then we're just going to back off.
It's like the opposite, isn't it?
It is the exact opposite. In some ways, that's quite refreshing.
Yeah.
So that would be nice.
I think there might be a 12-voice polybrute.
You think?
Maybe.
Yeah. Well, it'd be interesting. I mean, I personally think that we're going to see another. I predict another at least one or two 8 platform, as I call it, from Modal. So I think one will be. I'm hoping one will be an FM synth, but I reckon we'll see one or two of those coming this year, because that's been super successful for them, and and with good reason. That's really good. Cryss, any predictions from you?
Kind of along the same lines. Like I'd be looking forward to more of the modal stuff coming out. Those have been very interesting. Of course, some of these companies, if they came out with more stuff like ASM, would be very happy to see what kind of interesting products they would. As far as what kind of products, it would be nice if 2021 was the year of polyphonic aftertouch. There's so few keyboards that do it. Heck, even if it was a year where the Japanese companies stopped not putting aftertouch on their keyboards, like that would make me happy. I mean, let's at least get channel aftertouch out everywhere.
Yeah.
Korg and Roland and Yamaha. That would be fantastic. Will we see more interesting experimental synthesizers? Always interested to see what people do with UIs. At some point, I'm enjoying the time we're in because we're seeing a lot of recreations of classic synthesizers, which I love, and also of plugins doing the same thing. At some point, we'll kind of hit a saturation of it. I hope it's not for a while because I enjoy it, but I do hope that 2021 will also continue this uptick of innovation where we're seeing new and interesting things that are not based on old synthesizers. Yeah. I really want to have both. I don't want to be one way or the other.
There's room for both, yeah.
Yeah. So, it would be great, speaking of the Japanese companies, like them to like kind of wake up and start making some of the things that, so many people want. How cool would it be if Yamaha, made a non-workstation FM synthesizer? How cool, how cool would it be if Roland made analog synthesizers again?
Yeah.
That would be amazing.
Yeah. Do you know what I think? Again, this was something else I was contemplating earlier today. Was we've had some really nice analog polysynths. We've had the Moog 1, we've had the Prophet 5 reissue, Rev 4. We've had the Poly Brute, but they are all, let's be honest, they're quite expensive. They're not within everyone's price range. Certainly, none of them are within my price range right now. I know what the answer is to this, but I would like to see a manufacturer come up with a sub £1,000 analog polysynth with at least 8 voices, under £1,000, and not just £1 under. I'm talking, no more than $899, and we all know who's probably going to deliver that, and that's fine.
They already have, haven't they?
Sorry,
Behringer already have, haven't they? The DeepMind 12.
Well, yeah, but I mean that's kind of old now, isn't it?
Oh, right, yeah.
Is it even in production anymore? I don't know.
I don't know. It's pretty decent though.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's something else that really annoys me about Behringers, that they did that, and then they've gone off and done all this other stuff. So I would like a proper keyboard-based synthesizer that is 8 voice, minimum polyphonic, that is truly analog, and that is no more than $899. And then, why is that still such a problem? And I'm sure there's really good reasons for it. Maybe it's component prices. Maybe it's, there's just not a market for it. I don't know. I would love to own the new Prophet. That to me is. I got excited about. I didn't get excited about the Moog 1. I don't know why, but I got excited about the Poly Brute until I noticed it was 6 voices. I'm maybe more accepting of that than maybe Cryss is. I know, but. 8. When I go like that, I want to hear all the voices. So a Prophet 10, it really does appeal to me. But is it $4,500? I think, or 4 whatever. It's not going to happen. It really isn't. So I'd love. I mean, as much as I'm known for my love of digital synthesis, I would absolutely love a really well-spec'd polysynth, a genuine analog polysynth that's within the mass price range. And I know that if Behringer do bring out the S80, UBXA, whatever, that will probably tick that box, and then we'll see. But yeah, that's kind of what I'm hoping for.
I wonder what Dave Smith's plans are for the Prophet 6 now. Is it just going to continue running alongside the Prophet 5? Because they are very similar, aren't they? It's just
yeah. I think it will. I mean, they the 6 has so many more features. Yeah. There's quite a few sounds you can get out of the 6 that you wouldn't be able to get on the 5. The 5, of course, is so classic. They're not radically different in sound, but I think they're different enough in form factor and function that they could keep running together. I think one of the interesting things as far as the Prophet 6 and OB6 is what we talked about before, is that the rumors, Cryss from who's Pim on the forums from Sequential has hinted that they're going to update both the firmware for the OB6 and P6 to include the new vintage
don't call
style.
It slop.
Yeah, what used to be slop and detune on those two will kind of take on those characteristics. And if that happened, that would breathe a lot of new life into those synthesizers. That would be a great upgrade for everybody that's got one of those.
Yeah, I still like that P5. It's just I guess it's my age as well, and the fact that so many records that I love were made with a Prophet. It still holds up. And one of our members did this thing where he demonstrated recently, just the other day.
Oh, it was Luke, wasn't it?
That's it, Luke Gibbons or Gribbons. Gribbons, can't remember. Where he managed to find out a way of, on the P10, getting note stealing. And there's a button that you press, and you use a sustain pedal. And I didn't quite understand what he was doing with that. But and he played the intro to Betty Davis Eyes, and I just go, I go and do a little gooey mess because it's such a love. I love that little refrain. I love that sound, and it was just perfect. And I thought, I would kill for one of these, but I don't have $4,500 knocking around.
I don't think that, the money wise that I'd be able to do it right now, but I would be very tempted by the Prophet 10 desktop. I mean, the whole keyboard versions are so gorgeous, and love to look at them, but it's not something that I would need. And I've got a really nice key bed here that if I could have a P10 module just sitting up, kind of sitting over it, would be a wonderful thing. Again, it's so expensive, and I'm not sure how I'd get along with the very limited modulations on it, but the tone is so good.
It is. That's the thing. That's the thing that the Prophet 5 get. The originals, as Simon pointed out last week, were riddled with issues and problems and things. But that sound, and that's it. At the end of the day, it can be awful, but that sound is just so nice, so nice. Yeah. Any other predictions? We've spoken about hardware, but what about kind of software and doors and things? I mean, how do we see the door market panning out? Because not a lot has really happened in terms of innovation of doors recently.
I've been using the demo version of Cubase 11, and that's got that spectral thing.
Yes.
A bit like the RX8 stuff. I think they just tend to work off what each other's doing, don't they? They cherry pick the best bits out of each one and add them to their own. So
there doesn't seem to be a huge amount of innovation there, does there?
Yeah, I'm not sure about any real innovative things. But I
wonder whether Logic will get a major upgrade this year to go with the M1 stuff.
I think,
because
possibly.
On early, tests, I was watching Nick Batt's video there where he got a demo unit, a Mac Mini with an M1 processor, and it was able to do a ton of stuff. Way better than it is bonkers how good it is.
Because you've got like a little Mac Mini there with 8 GB of RAM in it.
Yeah.
And like the fans don't ever come on in it because it runs so cool, and it can run like 1,000 plugins at once.
Yeah, it's bonkers.
Yeah. These are, maybe after a generation or two, that would be something that I'd be considering getting to leave my laptop for my regular use, and then have a mini and a large monitor for the studio would be a great way to go.
Yeah. What do you guys think about subscription models? Because we've got Rolling Cloud, and we've got things like Composer Cloud from East West, and there are a few other things that you can. Some of them are just individual instruments. Some of them are packs of things. Do you see the subscriber market growing in 2021? Do you think that's going to be an even more important way?
I wouldn't be surprised if Steinberg didn't do that.
Right.
Steinberg did a Steinberg Cloud, and you got Cubase, Wavelab, and all the plugins, and
Well, I mean, I can't say anything. I do know there is one major door that is going subscription this year, very, very soon, to be honest. Yeah, it would be interesting to see if the others follow suit.
Oh, they will. I think so.
I think one of the unfortunate thing. I think one of the unfortunate things is like with Rolling Cloud, it's a subscription, or the Plugin Alliance or whatever. Like those are subscriptions, and I quite agree with Sasquatch there. But what's a disturbing trend to me is the things that are not subscriptions, but they're really becoming a subscription, like the Arturia Vintage Collection. And I waited several years so that I didn't get hit so hard on it. And then now they're punishing you for that. Like, if you buy their incremental upgrades, it's cheaper for you to keep doing the other ones. Whereas it was more expensive because I chose not to do that to save money, and then I get screwed both ways on it.
Yeah.
So
I'm surprised they haven't done that already, you know.
Yeah, I'm not liking that, or like with Wave's model. I mean, I wonder if there will be enough backlash against it, or if people will just keep accepting it and doing it.
So, Asia has just reminded me that this year I think we're supposed to be getting the Behringer door, and that's allegedly free. Which, so you know, it's it'll be interesting. I mean, will it be a clone?
Was Luna free also? I can't remember.
I don't.
It's a UAD.
Yeah. Oh yes, yeah. Luna's free, but you've got to have the UAD hardware. The hardware is the dongle, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, a lot of people use Reaper, don't they? And they use that free, and nobody pays. I mean, I know that they clearly must make some money from it because at the end of the day, it's only a $60 license. But I know loads of people who just use Reaper and don't even bother paying for it because
the thing, like, you know,
they allow it.
You got GarageBand for free, and Logic may as well be free because for $200, the amount of stuff that you get with it is just ridiculous. It's so good.
I've got a copy of Logic and I don't even use it. It was that good value. I had to buy it anyway.
Yeah. But no, I'm surprised that Arturia didn't go with subscription. I mean, I'm sure it's probably on a roadmap somewhere, Grenoble. But it's.
I mean, they kind of win both ways right now because it's not technically a subscription, but if you want to stay current and get all the stuff, you're basically subscribing each year anywhere or every year and a half.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. So what about software synths? Anything that we predict in there? You know, we might see or would like to see in 2021.
Oh well.
Go on. Sorry, Chris.
Maybe just as far as software plugins in general, one trend that I think is a good trend is that we have featured this year so many new free plugins. And it's not like the free plugins from a few years ago where they look like they're from 2005 or something. You know, you're like, I don't want to catch something by using that.
The 90s called. They want their interface back.
Yeah. But there's some, you know, these ones are really good. And I think it's a win-win for everybody because it's a free thing that people would pay for, like Supermassive. I mean, Valhalla could have made a lot of money off of Supermassive.
Yeah.
But they put it out there, and it's generated so much goodwill for them. And I'm sure they've had a number of sales of their other paid products because of Supermassive, and you know, Audiothings that we just talked about today, or there's. I made a list of all the free plugins I got in December, or like from Black Friday until the end of the year. Yeah. And it was like 15 or 20 things. I mean, it was incredible. Yeah. And most of those, like I would say probably 70% of them were things that I'm going to continue to use. There are a few that I'm just going to delete off, like, that didn't work for me.
Yeah.
But there's so many of them that, like, this is a really good value, and I'm going to think about buying more of that company's plugins because I've fallen in love with the free one, so maybe I'm going to check out these others. You know, like Sasquatch says, Spitfire Audio and the Labs, that's another great example.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Any thoughts on, because I've always pondered on the next big synthesis technology. You know, we had subtractive analog synthesis, and then along came digital in different forms, and then along came physical modeling and virtual modeling, and each of those, you know, skewed us in a new direction, and we went off and explored that, and then we've kind of come back to other things. Any thoughts on what might be the new thing, or where we might see a new type of synthesis, or what that might look like or sound like?
I don't know. I think in terms of modulation of traditional types of synthesis, that's maybe more where we would see innovation, either the UI or the modulation. Because everything that we're seeing come out is pretty, things that we love a lot, like the Hydrosynth. Well, it's a virtual analog and it's a wavetable, but there's so many different things that you can do with it. The UI is amazing. How we're modulating things, Generate by Newfangled Audio, which is a software synth that we had covered, I think is an interesting. And it combines both aspects of vintage synthesis of, traditional subtractive and like West Coast buchla type stuff, but also with this very new style of oscillators that it has, this double pendulum synthesis. And so that's a pretty cool thing. But again, it's not anything that, in the case of Generate, it's a new style of oscillation. But most stuff, again, is not really that new. It's like, how are we going to manipulate the things that we already have? And so on Jamie's show, we covered one that was called it's Vector something. I can't remember the name of it. Yeah. But that desktop unit with the big screen on it. Yeah. And it's a vector synthesis, but it's using a graphical, touch screen UI on it. And it's really kind of an interesting thing to watch and to see how it's used. And I imagine that's probably one of the areas that will be explored more. For myself, like the style of synthesis that I have been having fun with recently that I was not as familiar with is Granular. It seems to be like I've as I had put on the poll, learning to use Logic Sampler is one of my goals. But to be honest, the area of sampling that's most interesting to me by far would be granular synthesis. So,
I mean, like any kind of technology, and you can look at this, with synthesizer technology. Everything goes in cycles. We know that, and we had analog, then we had digital, and then we've come back to analog, and we've applied what we've learned. Since we ditched analog, all that stuff that we've learned, we applied a lot of that to the new versions of analog. And what we're seeing now is we're seeing digital coming back, applying all the things that we've learned since the last iteration, and we just keep going. So we keep going in cycles, but that cycle moves forward. And so if that's true, then I would suggest that we've seen kind of wavetable, we've seen FM. Are we going to see a new form of modelling? Are we going to see modelling done better, more powerfully, more affordably? Just we're going to come back to it because we've learnt stuff. And we've seen recently there's that little box of tricks from the French company, the Anima Fee or something. I can't remember. That gives a bit more stuff. Are we going to see more of that? And is that maybe can we look to that kind of model to predict what's going to be coming down the line next?
But there's also like these like little like small startup companies doing things like that Pilpa or whatever it was called. Pilpa.
Kelvgrand,
and that seemed quite different. That was like a kind of wavetable thing with vocal samples. So something could like jump out of left field, and everybody gets into it. I think going back to the software thing, we might be heading for a new version of Omnisphere. That should be that should be something that's going on in the background.
Something I've never gotten into.
Oh, it's great.
Yeah, I know everyone that it says it's just amazing and it's got all this stuff. Now, who was it in here? Sasquatch said sampling will be the next new old thing, and that's an interesting thing because we've seen granular sampling that's been around for a while, but nobody seems to have like done it brilliantly well that it's kind of been adopted by the masses. And I'm a big sampling fan. I don't know. I would still like to see, and I think we've spoken about this on before. I'd still like to see somebody come up with a unit that's as big as that, which is the S6000 front panel, that is actually a self-contained sampler, and that you can maybe even battery power it, and that really, really encourages people to go out with a piece of sampling hardware that they don't need to, they don't go this route of voice recorder, come back to the studio, plug it in, stick it through some software. One unit, go out, sample stuff, manipulate it within the box. I mean, I was watching Ramsey's show with the Polyend tracker yesterday, and that seemed, that was maybe not so much that, but the speed at which he could just sample something and then process it and come out with something new and messy and do something cool with it. I'd like to see something like that, and I'd like to see everybody kind of get back to that old-fashioned found sound sampling, which I think is best.
Yeah, and the sampling technology was just, it was like at the forefront of technology, but then the technology grew and the sampling hardware dropped off. Yeah, because you could have a sampler now with like 32 gigs of RAM in it. 32 gigs of RAM, a 4 terabyte hard drive. The power that could be in these things. The sound creation possibilities with a modern hardware sampler that you could take out live.
Yeah. And the thing is, I want the simplicity of an Akai S612, where you throw a sample in and you have 2 sliders, one for sample start, one for sample end. And you just keep playing this, and then until you get to that perfect point, right? That's what I want. Boom, done. On to the next one, and just that real ease of just taking a sample and very quickly being able to shape it into something that is usable in the musical sense. I'd love something in hardware that's dedicated, and maybe it's a touchscreen thing. I don't know, but simple and straightforward.
Looking at how technology influenced sampling, because the memory, was so small back in the 80s. And as it got bigger, then that became kind of a major component in romplers and everything in the synth world. And it may be time for physical modeling now, because hopefully we'll be coming on a big jump in computing. And look how well Apple has done. Now that they've been able to leave Intel behind to a large part. That maybe we'll see as processing power starts making some jumps again, that things like modeling will be done better, and instead of romplers, we'll get physically modeled strings and keys and all that kind of pianos and whatnot. And then the spin-off of that would be, let's make things that have never been made.
Yeah.
Which can already be done in that, but it's just not that popular, and it's very expensive CPU-wise. So
Yeah, I mean, that's what drew me into physical modelling, was that hybrid creation thing, that you can take a reed oscillator and stick it into a guitar resonance chamber, and what does that sound like? It might sound like shit, but I can do it and come up with something like new and never heard of. And I think FPGAs are becoming much more affordable and much more commonplace, and that can that can take a lot of load away from your regular kind of CPU. So maybe, that'd be interesting to see. Well, look, we have gone way over time, and I could sit here all evening and talk about this, but we've got to draw the line somewhere. So, guys, listen, thank you ever so much for your input as always. Just to remind you, if you've kind of joined us on the catch up, we were going to have Dominic Hawken on the show today, but he took ill shortly before we came on air, so he decided that he couldn't appear, which is absolutely fine. We hope that he's feeling better very soon, and we will get him back. We will get him back because he's always a good guest to have on. Talking of guests, obviously we're not going to mention any names right now because we're sort of doing the deals, and I say deals, it makes it sound quite fancy. We're just sending emails begging, please come on our show. But we have some interesting names lined up, and we just need to just kind of drop them into slots. But we are planning to have some really interesting people that will hopefully make your Sunday evenings worth staying up with us for. Max says Dominic Cummings is free. Yes, he can stay that way. Thank you very much. Anyway, so next week we'll be back same time, same place. We may have a guest, we may not, but as soon as we know, because Dom might be able to come back for that one. Who knows? But we've got some good people coming, and we will let you know in the Facebook group, and that's where you need to go. So if you haven't joined us already, join us on our Facebook page. Go to Facebook and search for ProSynth Network. And if you're not already a member, we just asked you, I think it's 3 very simple questions. And once you've answered those, then you're in. And you can join in the fun there. You can join in with the weekly poll discussion, which we will throw a new one up over in the next few days. We would love for you, if you haven't already, we'd love for you to donate to our fund. We've already put some of our money in as well, but you guys have been just amazing. Some of the levels of contribution you guys have made have astounded me, and I've sometimes had to double check because I think, maybe they hit the 0 button too many times, but no, you've been amazing. So thank you for those, and keep that coming. That's really appreciated, and it keeps us on the air for as long as we possibly can. We will be back same time, same place next week, either on Facebook Live or on YouTube. Thank you to everybody in the chat room. I would name you all, but there are far too many to go through. You all know who you are. You've been absolutely fantastic. Thanks for your support last year, and thanks for coming back for 2021. I hope this will be a fantastic year, and we'll go from strength to strength on this channel. Do you guys want to say anything else before we head off?
Oh,
no.
How you gonna see?
Okay.
Well, I'll just say, if you got the sex and drugs, you don't need the rock and roll at all.
That's always got a good.
Wow.
We have to work on that. Well. Then you'll fit in, mate.
Yeah. It's just been an interesting year. We've had like traumas and that, but like some good things have come out of it, and this has been one of the better ones for me. And absolutely. I hope that we can continue doing it for quite a while. And thanks for everyone's support. And with any luck, hopefully this horrible thing, this pandemic thing, will be over at some point this year. We're not going to make any predictions on that one, but we'll be able to go out more and do more and have more stuff. Native VS asks in the chat room, any plans on what you're going to do with the PSN slush fund? Well, once lockdown is over, we're all going on a holiday. No, seriously. We've already ploughed most of it back into keeping the streaming service available so that we can continue to do the shows with the degree of professionalism or perceived professionalism that we have so far. And what we are hoping to do is just to maintain that so that we can maintain the channel presence, because it isn't cheap, as I'm sure you all know. So that's the bulk of it's gone there. But we don't take anything from this. It's a separate account. None of it goes into our pockets. It all goes to pay bills and stuff. And then, who knows, if we get enough, we might be able to do some other things. We have got plans for other ways to generate income. We won't say much now, but we do have stuff in our plans. So look out for those, and we'll announce those here and on the Facebook page as well. Anyway, I'm rambling now, so I need to just ramble a bit more whilst I set the show end up. But guys, thank you ever so much for your company this evening. It's been wonderful as always. And to everybody watching, thank you for watching. Subscribe, like, and smash that bell. Is that what the kids say? Smash that bell. I know, it sounds good. We need some graphics and anyway, please do like us. That helps. Subscribing to us helps, and the subscription helps you, or the bell helps you more than it helps us. But do that, and then you'll know not to miss our show. Goodbye, everyone, and we'll see you next week. Thanks for your company. Take care. Bye.